Hello, BookTube. I have a tag for you this morning, but before we start, I want to offer a blanket apology for the following. Rampant sniffles. I'm in the middle of an apocalyptic allergy attack. Sirens, ambulances, traffic, backhoes, jackhammers, earth movers, fighter jets. There have been two passovers. There's trouble in the next town over. High yield military ordnance, and dogs barking at each other. All of those things, not just some, but all of those things are going to go throughout this video, making me almost impossible to hear. But since I sound so gross, that's probably a good thing. Uh, and the tag I want to do is Nonfiction November tag. It's original. It's an original tag created by Maria at Read, Create, Repeat Homeschool in honor of Nonfiction November, which is an event that's hosted by Olive at Nonfic Books, or Olive at Book Olive, and Gemma at Nonfic Books for the month of November. In which they encourage you to read more nonfiction. And this is a tag all about that. So I thought we'd get right into it. Again, with apologies for the fact that you're not going to be able to hear or understand anything I say. So number one is Nonfiction November is a great time to meet other nonfiction lovers. Give a shout out to one. And this is actually true. I've noticed in the last Nonfiction November, and I'm looking forward to it this time around, that when Nonfiction November rolls around, you find suddenly all the booktubers who like nonfiction. And I'm looking forward to adding a whole bunch of channels to my list. The one I want to give a shout out to right now is Richardson Reads, who is the owner of a TARDIS in the shape of a house. If you were to walk in the door to his drafty old house full of children and lots of things to do, your first impression would be that there might not be enough room here for a family. But then you watch his library tour videos and you see that he's already shown us more books than would fit in the Boston Public Library here in Boston. And it just goes on. He's not even barely scratched the surface. So his house is bigger on the inside than on the outside, which is amazing. And he reads a lot of nonfiction. So I give a shout out to him. If you don't subscribe to his channel, you should. Question number two: why do you read nonfiction? Well, for me, it's just a wonderland. It's a whole bunch of new worlds. Every good example of it is a new world, because someone is obsessed over some subject and then distill it into a book. And whereas a lot of times with fiction, the person involved, the writer involved, has obsessed about one particular part, and the rest is filler, and that isn't realizing that when you're in the middle of reading it isn't so much fun. Also, for me, I myself particularly like biography and history, and reading those once you've read a lot of them is like reading. Imagine that a new book came out that was all about the people you went to high school with. You'd drop everything to read it because you're personally involved. After a while reading nonfiction, reading up on subjects and time periods, you start to feel that way about new titles on those subjects and time periods, and then you wouldn't miss it. Question number three: home. Where in your home do you most like to read? I have two places. I like to read here on this couch, and in the other room. I have a little book room off of this room that has my bed and just wall-to-wall books. And I like reading in those two places, except when I'm feeling like the River Ganges is running out my nose. Then I don't feel like reading anywhere. Question number four. These three deal with home, because there are four challenges for Nonfiction November, and home is the first one. So question number four is also home. It's a nonfiction recommendation in or about your home country. And this is something I have here. I've recommended it before. I cannot recommend it strongly enough. I think that if you're an American, you really should read this book. And it's this: The People Are Going to Rise, Like the Waters Upon Your Shore, by Jared Yates Sexton, who's also a very good but very angry follow on Twitter, if you want it. If you want that kind of vinegar in your Twitter feed. And this is all about the 2016 presidential election. So I guess you could read it with fascination even if you weren't an American, because it's going to change the world. He's the clearest headed thinker that I've read on the subject of all the stuff that I've read in magazines or in books so far. He doesn't, in this book, he doesn't quite see the full nature of what happened in America in 2016. But that's, I think, just because he's young. But either way, the book is incredible. It's must reading. One of the only things I've seen so far that I've seen in 2017 that is must reading. And then the last home book is which book on your 2017 TBR are you most excited about that deals with home, of course. My 2017 TBR ended a long time ago. But for 2018, I have one in mind. And it looks really good. It's Alison Hoagland. It's The Log Cabin, the history of an American icon that I have a feeling, I just have a sense of the book that I mean, a book like this could be very easy. It could be just a checklist of Wikipedia pieces, but I have a feeling this isn't going to be. I have a feeling it's going to be quite good. We'll see. I'll report back. And then the next three questions deal with the next prompt for Nonfiction November, which is love. And question number 6 is, what nonfiction book do you love? What nonfiction do you love to read the most? And I've mentioned on this channel many times before that those two are history and biography. I like those more than any other kind of nonfiction. I read more of them. Question number 7 is a nonfiction recommendation related to love that you can make to other people. And I have one here on the trusty iPad. It's by Carolyn Knapp, the great late Carolyn Knapp. It's Drinking, a Love Story, which is her story of her interaction with alcohol. And I ordinarily can't stand such books because the first thing that they usually toss over the side, usually in the first 2 pages, is personal accountability, which drives me nuts. You are not forced to drink. You are not forced to take a drink of alcohol. You are not forced to do that. So if in the first 2 pages of your book about your alcoholism, you dispense with the idea that you might be making any kind of a choice, then you're going to annoy me. And she kind of sort of does that, but not quite. And she's a beautiful writer. And so it's an odd book. It's not the kind of thing I usually recommend at all because mostly they annoy me, but I loved it. And I do recommend it, whether you drink too much or not. And then the last love category is what love-related nonfiction are you most excited coming up? And for me, it's this. It's The Dog, A Natural History. This is by, it's edited by Adam Miklosi, and it comes out in the spring. And it's just a natural history of the people I love most. So it's on my radar. I don't have it yet, though. And then the next 3 questions deal with the next prompt for Nonfiction November, which is substance. Gemma and all have kept these intentionally vague so that they would cover a lot. I like that. And the first substance is question number 9. As the tag writes it, nonfiction is a great way to inspire us to be better. Name a person of substance you've loved reading more about. Although I sound like Swamp Thing right now, I am generally unimprovable. So I don't know what that be better business is all about. But in terms of a person of substance you love reading about, for me, in the second half of this year, that has been the theologian Thomas Aquinas. Because a friend of mine is writing a book about Thomas Aquinas, a gigantic combination of study and biography. And I've been deeply involved in the process of that book. And so the more of it there is, the more of it I like reading about. It's going to, if it ever actually appears, if I ever actually manage to yank it out with hammer and tongs from its writer, it's going to be a just groundbreaking monument of Thomas Aquinas scholarship. But I love reading bits and pieces. I'm not going to do you any good, but someday. And then question number 10, what book would you recommend with a lot of substance? Now that I can do, and I've recommended it on this channel before, but I'm always happy to give it another plug because it really is a book you should read. And it's this. It's Bob Sapolsky. It's Behave. It's a study of it's hard even to synopsize. It's a study of humans. It's a study of why people do what they do on a vast variety of subjects, and it's buttressed by science. It's beautifully written, but it's full of insight too. It's full of Sapolsky thinking beyond the facts and figures in a way that I loved it. I've read it twice now, and I feel certain that it's one of those books that I will just go back to in the course of time. So I heartily recommend it. It'll probably be in your library, and it's I know my time frame on these things is kind of fuzzy because I'm reading ahead and I'm rereading old. So I don't know, but Behave by Sapolsky might be due for a paperback release soon. If so, snap it up. And then question number 11, what substance-related book are you most excited about? There's quite a bit for me. There's a lot of, I'm starting now to look with earnest at 2018 books, and there's a lot that interests me that's of substance. Two things I noticed the other day are at least two that I noticed. Two new scholarly works coming out on Benedict Arnold. For those of you who don't live in America, maybe not up on American history, he's the quintessential American trader. And studies of him have ranged from, the facile all the way to the absolutely incredible. And there are a couple of studies coming out in the spring that look really good. No way to tell until I crack them open, but that definitely intrigues. And then the next three questions deal with scholarship, which is the last of the prompts for Nonfiction November, and of course my favorite of the prompts. And question number 12 is, what subjects have you really learned about? And when it comes to nonfiction, that's one of the things I love most about it, is that I'm learning all the time. Somebody delves deep into some subject, with a kind of a free-diving intensity. They just go down as low as they can. They study everything, they read everything, they're obsessed with every detail. And then they resurface, and they have a work that they want to share with the rest of you. And it's, I love that process. I love knowing there are people out there deep diving on subjects right now. And it can be almost anything, even a subject that I think I know well. I have an example here. This just came out in paperback. This is Aviva Gottlieb Zornberg, and it is called Bewilderments, and it's an entire book about the Book of Numbers in the Bible, which I have repeatedly dismissed as a wasteland. And the book is absolutely fascinating from start to finish, because this writer did nothing but study the Book of Numbers forever and ever. Deep dived on the subject of the Book of Numbers and came out with a book that's incredible, shed light on every aspect of the Book of Numbers that I had no idea. So that's a perfect example of the kind of thing that's always teaching me about nonfiction. And then number 13 is, which book would you recommend when it comes to scholarship? And I have a work. I've recommended it on this channel before. It's amazing. Talk about deep diving. It's the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. This is volume 1. But this is an absolutely exhaustive study of the superheroes and supervillains of the Marvel Universe. An exhaustive study with... let's see if we can find a Marvel character that most of you will know. There's so much here, though. So okay, Cyclops of the X-Men. So you have the character entry there. You have his details. He's 6'3", but he weighs 175 pounds. So he's a string bean. He doesn't have super strength. And Cyclops is a mutant with a superhuman ability to project a beam of ruby-colored concussive force from his eyes. The precise nature of this energy and its origin remain unknown, though various hypotheses have been made in the past. There appears to be a direct correlation between the length of time Cyclops has been exposed to sunlight and the intensity and longevity of the force of his beams. Cyclops apparently somehow metabolizes sunlight, and presumably starlight as well, in the process of generating force beams. It has been argued that Cyclops could therefore prevent himself from generating the force beams by confining himself to places sealed off from sunlight. It has not been. No one has hypothesized that. That doesn't matter. However, for unknown reasons, deprivation of sunlight for extended period sets up a dangerous physiological imbalance of unknown nature in Cyclops' body. On one occasion, Cyclops increased the power of his beams temporarily by metabolizing large amounts of electrical energy. But this was an unusual instance which is unlikely to recur. The exact means by which Cyclops stores the solar energy in his body, and by which he stores the unknown energy of his optic beams, remains unknown. And then they go on, because blasting energy beams out of his eyes is Cyclops' only superpower. They go on the writers go on to give exact parameters of what those force beams can do, and the exact limits of them. Like, what have we got here? His narrowest beam, about the diameter of a pencil at a distance of 4 feet, has a force about 2 pounds per square inch. His broadest beam has so far been observed, and by observed they mean they're going through the comics and using that as their yardstick, not what writers say. They're going by what we've actually seen in the comics. Is about 90 feet across at a distance of 50 feet and has a force of about 10 pounds per square inch. His most powerful eye blast is a beam 4 feet across, which, at a distance of 50 feet, has a force of about 500 pounds per square inch. The beam's effective range is 2,000 feet, at which point a 1-inch beam has a spread of about 10 square feet and has been measured at 0.36 pounds per square inch. And it just goes on from there. It's not by any means that is typical for every single character in here, where the writers have gone over the entire corpus of Marvel Comics and made a checklist of what they have seen these characters, good and bad characters, do, and they've quantified it. These were never reprinted. They never will be, because the whole idea of quantifying things like that is, companies consider it completely antithetical now, and that makes sense, because the vaguer a character is, the more popular they can be. So you'll never see anything like this, and you'll certainly never see anything like this for DC Comics, although I would love it if they did. But no, the whole mind frame behind it is gone now. So that in the, for instance, in the Avengers movie, at one point, Captain America is shot in the midsection with an alien energy weapon at point blank range. Those of you familiar with the movie will know the scene I'm talking about. He's shot in the midsection, which is not armored, at point blank range with an energy weapon of alien design. And not only, it knocks him off his feet, but it doesn't even break his skin, much less incapacitate him or cut him in two. And that is crazy. And the only way you can get away with that is not to quantify him. Same thing in the original Avengers movie. We see the character Thor leaping down out of the sky from hundreds and hundreds of yards in the distance. We see him lifting cars. We see him punching concrete. A being who can do all those things will, by force, be impenetrable. He will be invulnerable. Otherwise, he would be a squashed pumpkin every time he tried to do one of those things. And yet, in the same movie, that Thor very intentionally leaps out of the path of gunfire, presumably so as not to be shot to death. The movies and the current batch of comics, characters that you've never heard of can square off with Galactus, the devourer of worlds, and win because no one is quantified. But these quantify everything, and they're just the ultimate geeky delight to read about. And question number 14 for scholarship. What are you most excited to read? I don't know about most excited, because I'm excited about a whole lot of things. One thing that I am excited to read is out in the UK already, but it hasn't come out in America yet. It comes out in the spring in America. They needed time in America to give it an ugly cover. And it's Chris Skidmore, a historian I really like. This is his new book about Richard III. And I can't wait to read it. I'm fascinated by Richard III, as anybody would be. And that's it. That is the Nonfiction November tag, the nasal nonstop noise November Nonfiction tag. And all that's left for me to do is tag people. But looking back to what I said at the beginning of the tag about how these things always introduce me. This month always introduces me to nonfiction readers that I didn't know were out there. Those are the people I want to tag, not the people that I already know, but the people I don't know. So if you're watching this tag and you like nonfiction, by all means do it. I'm not going to be able to watch the videos that you make because I'm pretty sure that after today I'm going to be dead. But I'll instruct my heirs to watch them. And I can't say I'll see you later, BookTube, because something today is going to kill me. But you know, it's been great.